Back when I
Where was he at?
14, I saw him in Memphis. So, yeah.
Where's
Fargo.
he at? Oh, Fargo.
It is 5:30. I'd like to start the meeting. Our first item is our pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Vice Chair, could you read our mission statement?
The mission of the Marshall Public School District is to educate, support, and prepare all learners for success.
Thank you. Approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
So moved. I'll second.
Any additions? Hearing none, please vote. Is approved. Tiger Spotlight.
I want to recognize Brian Jones tonight for the Tiger Spotlight, and he was not able to join us for the meeting, but he was recently named the Minnesota's BPA Administrator of the Year. The advisors for the BPA had written that Brian understands the importance of providing opportunities for all of our students so they can find their individual talent. His support of our chapter and objectives is evident in all that he does for students at MHS. He treats staff and students with respect and generally listens. He is open to change his view and or go above and beyond because he generally listens and strives to always do what's best for students. So congratulations to Brian. He did receive that award a week ago at their state convention.
Very good. Public forum. Now is the time the public could approach the board. Is there anybody like to approach the board? Moving on to our presentation, Technology Department update. It's always nice to have really smart people here like you guys. So.
Members of the board, thanks for having us here tonight. Give you some updates with technology. First, we'll give a brief overview of our annual technology survey. Provide a update overview of Southview technology, and then we will finish with a presentation by Bennett Apple, Southview 4th grade teacher. Forgot to introduce myself, Todd Pickthorn, District Technology Coordinator. So my first slide is on our annual technology survey. In the past, we used a product brought to our attention by Southwest Service Cooperative called Bright Bites Technology and Learning Solution. This has been our technology survey solution for the last 3 years. Since 2013, the Teaching and Learning Solution has brought educators across the country with information and insights around their instructional technology programs. You may recall me talking about the CASE framework in the past where we used that to analyze our technology survey data. This year we decided to shift to a new product that they have called Modern Learning, which is adds a few changes that introduce new questions that districts needed answered to address the new and changing learning environment. Bright Bites created this Modern Learning Solution, a survey tool designed to give teachers and school leaders the information they need to make informed decisions with data around the following questions. Do our students and teachers have adequate support to be successful in a modern learning solution? How can I ensure equitable access to technology and learning opportunities for all students? How are students' social emotional competencies adapting to change? How do our parents feel about the learning environment? And do our school leaders effectively communicate expectations for student learning? So students in grades 3 through 12 and all staff completed this survey the week of January 10th. And now I will turn it over to Karen Longren, our digital learning coach.
Good evening. I am going to do something a little bit different tonight with you all. I'm going to ask you to participate in our presentation tonight as I review some of our survey data that we received back when we did the survey in January. So we're going to be using a tool called Kahoot. I had you all get it up on your computer, Tricia and I, to help you with that. But I'm going to explain Kahoot a little bit first. If you don't know what Kahoot is, it's a game-based learning platform. And we use it in many of the classrooms throughout our district. It's applicable really for K through 12. So it's very adaptable in that aspect. It's often used for test prep, drill and practice, knowledge checks, and even formative assessments it can be used for. The learning games, or the Kahoots, are user-generated, so the teachers or the person doing the Kahoot, in this case tonight, me, create multiple choice true and false questions. And then I added one question at the end that's, I'm going to have you put some things in order. So the first three questions I'm going to ask you tonight, you have 30 seconds to answer, but I gave you a little more time on the last one. And I'll give you a tip, too, when we get to that one. Kahoot scores on speed and accuracy. So no pressure, but there might be some prizes. So if I could have you go to the tab that we had you open for Kahoot. And over on this screen over here, I'm going to start the Kahoot. And you're going to get a code to put in that box that's on your screen. Does everybody have that? And if you can't see the code, let Todd or I know, and we will let you know what that code is.
Get the game pin?
Yep. Okay, there it is.
Oh, that's a huge code.
790-1228. The nice thing about Kahoot, it's been around for about 10 or 12 years. And it's just a really nice platform, and it's also free. So our teachers use this a lot and really like it. So, okay, so I'm waiting for some names. Do we have everybody, Todd? We got everyone? Okay, so now when I start this, on your screen, you're going to see 4 colored squares, okay? On my screen and up here will be the question, and I'll read you the question as well. And then you'll look up here for the answers, okay? And then click the colored tile on your screen to what you want your answer to be. So these are just some questions that came from our survey, and I'm going to say, just tell me what you think the answer to these questions were, okay? So are we ready?
Nervous.
Are you? Don't be nervous. I'm the one who's supposed to be nervous. 3, 2, 1. Here's our first question.
Can you step to the side?
That's it.
Yep. What percentage of teachers ask their students to use their devices on a daily basis in grades 3 through 12? We got 88%, 29%, 66%, or 12%.
Oh,
I got it wrong too.
Fine.
66.
Incorrect, Rob. Made a mistake there.
Yep, okay, so Todd's gonna bring up the graph over here from our actual survey,
I'm tied with Bill.
and it's actually 66% of teachers ask to use their devices on a daily basis in the classroom. But you also see the next one is 14% is a few times a week, so you look at that, really 80% of the time. The correct answer, of course, is 66, but you look at the two together, and you're at 80% that nearly every day they're using their devices. Okay, ready for the next one? Oh, here's our leaderboard. Board, come
Mine
on.
do too. I think. We all got it wrong. And mine says I'm tied with
least
Bill,
we're all
but we're
still
all
tied.
tied together. So.
Okay, what method do students use most often to complete their homework? And this again is grades 3 through 12. Grades 3 and 4 do not bring their devices home. pencil.
Can't read the
paper,
yellow.
School-issued device, cell phone, or their own personal device. Okay, we're gonna have some leaders. We got some right answers. You can click next, we'll see where we're at.
Woo,
I mean, you are competitive.
there you go.
There, he can
Todd?
see better.
I can see it better.
I was gonna say, I couldn't read the yellow.
I'm handicapped.
I was like, what is the
Graph
yellow?
up over here that corresponds to that question. So you can see 87% of our students use their school-issued devices for homework. Okay. The 47%, the paper packets, that would correlate back to your third and fourth graders who don't bring devices home. Okay. One more multiple choice. What percent of teachers use a learning management system like Schoology or Teams with their students on a daily basis? That's grades 5 through 12.
Daily basis.
75%, 60%, 47%, or 95%. What do you think it is?
75. Oh, I finally got one right.
Good answers that time. Todd, you want to flip to, that graph's a little
I didn't want
harder
to be a
to
total
read,
loser.
but if you look at the top line, learning management system is nearly 75%. The one that's the next strongest would be the fourth one down, the online curriculum or digital textbooks is nearly 50%. Okay, now the last question is to put things in order. There's 4 things, and it correlates back to what teachers are requesting most for professional development. You have 2 minutes to answer. I gave you guys more time on this one. I am going to put a disclaimer out there that the technology-related answer was not in the top 3. So I found that interesting, but where's our leaderboard? Jeremy, you're still
I'm just kicking it.
on Bill Ketchum this
Yeah.
time.
Take his
You guys
mouse-
ready?
Take his mouse away.
Right. I can use a trackpad.
Okay, put in order the professional development topics requested most by teachers.
Oh, I can't
Remember, I
read that.
said the
can't read that.
technology-related answer was not in the top 3. You have 2 minutes to answer this one. The blended learning platforms, keeping students focused and on task, social emotional learning, and develop opportunities for critical thinking.
Which one was detecting?
And then you have to hit submit,
Red.
you guys.
Do you have any
The
questions on
red
it?
one, I think, is the tech one.
And then once you click your box.
Move them to the top.
Yep, just
Move them
slide
to
your
the order that they
colored
are.
boxes around. Yep.
What's the green one say?
Develop opportunities for critical thinking.
That one is much harder.
Yeah.
What they would say. Yeah.
Can't read it, so.
Okay, I think we got them.
Goodness.
One person got it right.
No, not me.
Better be Jeremy, he's seen him.
No, I did not get that one right.
What was
I
the
got it
answer?
Here comes the podium. The graph is right up over here. I brought the graph up over here again. Keeping students focused was number 1. Number 2 was social emotional learning. Then critical thinking skills, and then with the blended platforms, the online collaboration was 4th. So I found that really interesting when we did this survey, a technology survey. So, any questions on any of that? Well, thank you for participating, and I do have some prizes.
Get insider information.
Inside, yeah.
Okay. Jeremy, you pick first.
Oh, you can give it to the others. I'll share the prizes.
Who was second?
Bill Muscle.
Them.
Okay. Okay. Who was next, Todd?
I was.
Participation.
Matt?
Thank you, thank you.
Give it to Bennett for presenting.
Yeah, give it to
Anybody
them.
hungry? Thanks, Bennett. Okay, I'm going to shift just a little bit now over to some professional development information. share with you some of the common ways that we look at doing technology-related professional development in the district. We're starting to see more workshops and conferences coming back to in-person now. Kind of the, I hate to say post-COVID era, but I think we're on the downhill slide there, so because we're seeing more of those now. So where it's applicable, we'll send staff to offsite workshops or conferences. We do have one coming up early in April. It's a technology conference. It's down in Sioux Falls. So we have 5 staff attending.
How do you select staff to go?
I work with the building principals usually and say, do you have someone in your building that you'd really like to attend this? We look for people who are willing to come back and share that information with their peers in the building and kind of be a leader in that area to bring that technology back.
Bennett, you get to go already?
Not quite yet.
We also, March 28th, have a professional development day coming up in-house. And that morning, we have breakout sessions for staff. And there's a few technology offerings during that, as well as many other professional development offerings. So do that. We do those in-house. Really, it's the continued support throughout the school year in the classroom, whether it's with an individual teacher working with them or small groups, or if I come across resources that say are applicable to U.S. history, for example, I'll share that with just the U.S. history teachers. So those types of things. And then really I've become quite dependent on our monthly newsletter that we send out, our technology newsletter. And try to get a lot of good information in there as far as tips and tricks and how-tos and district updates when it comes to technology, because that newsletter reaches everyone. So I know that I can get to everyone with that newsletter.
I like the newsletter.
Thank you.
It's well
Thank
done.
you. Thank you. So one thing I just want to mention that we're looking at doing new this fall, and I'm kind of excited about. I've heard for the past 2-3 years especially, we have a lot of new 9th graders that come into our building that are coming from Holy Redeemer or from Lind or Samuel or True Light, and they're really struggling with technology when they get to us because they haven't come from the middle school where they're accustomed to that. So I'm going to do a technology orientation in August and offer that a 2-hour session for those students to come in, get them their device, get them logged on, just get them into and familiarized with our Microsoft Office, with our Schoology, and that. So I'm really excited about that.
Great, good program. Excellent.
Any questions for me? I'm going to turn it back over to Todd. He's got some more for you.
So I'm going to talk back to the survey for a minute. You can see from those results that some of those questions we wouldn't have gained from our traditional technology survey. So I think the switch to the modern learning has been beneficial this year. The next slide I have here is district integrations and interoperability. Interoperability is a term that I use that by definition it's the ability of computer systems or software to exchange and make use of information. So this is a tool that we've started using more and more that allows us to share data between applications. Why do we look to integrate apps or resources used into our environment? To create a seamless user experience, eliminating the need for multiple logins or accounts, provide account security, and protect user information and credentials. More and more apps are integrated each year. What we use is a few different tools. One's called OneRoster and another one is Clever. These are tools that a lot of students are familiar with. When they open up their device, they have a Clever icon on the desktop that they can click on, and then within that is a bunch of technology resources that they can click into. And the secret of all of that is they don't have to log into each one of those. Those rosters are already pre-set up for them, so their classrooms are all set up for the teacher. All the login stuff is there. So I do say interoperability has saved us countless hours of instruction just because we're making it really simple and easy for people to get into those applications and use.
User friendly.
Very user-friendly, yep. So Infinite Campus is our primary data source. That's our student information system that everything originates from. So we feed from Infinite Campus to these other applications using interoperability. So my next slide has to do with Southview technology. When you walk into a classroom at Southview, the one thing that kind of stands out is the 86-inch ultra-high definition 4K screen that's in each one of the classrooms. Bennett's going to talk to this a little bit more. But to me, this technology is fantastic. When we set this classroom up over there, we went with the premise that we wanted to keep it untethered, where we didn't want to have cords running all over the classroom and, you know, them being defined to one spot in the room, because we talked about different areas. Where should we put the data jacks? And finally, we came up with a solution that we're not even going to worry about that because we want them to be able to be very mobile. So we made it so that in each screen is a built-in computer, so they can log into the screen itself, and then they have a wireless keyboard and mouse, and they can present from anywhere in the room and present information on there. The other thing that we have at Southview that I think is really unique is audio enhancement systems in each classroom, so that the teacher can be heard wherever they're at with that audio enhancement system that is hooked both to the board and to a lapel that they wear around their neck that amplifies their sound throughout the room. So very nice to have that in every classroom over there.
Especially for kids who are hard of hearing.
Yep, yep.
Does that go through the TV or is it
It goes through the
speakers in the ceiling or?
speakers in the ceiling. Yep,
Okay.
yep. But it can go through the TV as well. Another unique feature we have at Southview is our displays that we have throughout the building. I don't know if you've seen that. We didn't have it quite operational at open house, but now when you go over there during the day, they have TVs in the cafeteria that have lunch menus displayed on them. They have you know, different events that are going on in the building or around the district, and different ones. That system allows us to have up to 3 different channels per se of content that they can program in the office on a regular basis, so they can get a message out to people through those TVs. In addition, we have breakout rooms at the end of the hallways that have a display with a wireless adapter behind them that allows us to have like small group instruction in those small rooms at the end of the hallway. So anybody can walk in there and cast to those displays and collaborate on a project. So very cool technology. And again, just our whole room design in Southview was to allow flexibility in connecting to classroom technology. The teacher desk is no longer tied to one spot in the room. It can be wherever within that room. So, turn it back over to Karen.
Okay, well, I'm here to introduce Bennett Apple. Bennett is a 4th grade teacher at Southview, and he's going to share some of the awesomeness of these new interactive boards that are in the classroom. He had the opportunity to work at Parkside last year as a kindergarten teacher, so he's got some really good comparisons with using the old traditional smart boards versus what he has now over at Southview. This one.
Good here. All right, perfect. Thank you again. I'm Bennett Apple, 4th grade teacher here at Southview Elementary. I teach primarily math and social studies. This is my 2nd year in the district, first year as 4th grade teacher, as Karen said, and then last year I was fortunate enough to have the experience of teaching kindergarten over at Parkside. And I had experience with the smart board interactive systems over there, and I got this amazing New Line interactive TV. So I'm just going to highlight a couple of the things that I utilize my board in every day. I know back in the summer when we had that open house, I think the thing that caught the eyes of most of the people walking in the rooms were like, holy cow, that's a huge TV. What do we need that for? Which is a very valid question. You know, when people aren't in our school day to day and couple of the, older folks that haven't been in school for a while, they didn't have that technology back then. So I just want to highlight some of the things I use the board for, because I truly would be lost without it. I think I use it 80% of my day, and it enhances my teaching and enhances the student learning. So just to start, you can see up on my board, this is what I put up every morning. It's just a simple PowerPoint. It just goes through the list of what I expect my students to do every morning. I throw in a little joke of the day. They just come in, they see this. I don't have to dim the lights or anything. That's one thing with the smart boards I had an issue with a lot last year. I had a kindergarten room that had a big door, glass window in it, and sunlight would come in through, which is awesome. But it would make that board really dim, and the kids would be it would really be hard for them to see it unless I had the front row of lights off. And in Southview, we've got these big, beautiful windows. I don't have to dim the lights because this display, as you can see, is ultra bright. It's just not, there's no glare on it. It's just not a problem at all. So I love to have that up. Some other things that I use the board for.
I want to know, what did summer say to spring?
What did summer say? Does anybody have any answers? None of my fourth graders got this one this morning. Anyone have a guess? Help, I'm going to fall. Get it, summer, spring, fall. It's the next season. They thought that was a pretty lame joke. They said that was a dad joke. Another thing that I like to use in my classroom, this is an app called Classroom Screen. It's just got a bunch of little widgets on the bottom. One thing I use a lot is the clock for those, especially that aren't able to tell time on a regular analog clock like that. I just have it up. Otherwise, it's kind of hard to see down in the bottom of the computer. And I utilize my timer over there a lot. If I have, all right, you guys have a minute and a half to transition from one subject to the next. You have 4 minutes to complete this assignment. And that's one thing I just like to have up as well. As Todd was talking about earlier, I want to show what Clever looks like if I could get my mouse over there. So this is the Clever, bear with me. I might have to do that. So this is the Clever homepage right here. This is from a teacher's perspective. So I have different pages. For example, this is my Mr. Apples page. So all of my students, both in my classroom and my partner teacher's classroom, can see all of these things. I have different apps on there like Kahoot, like we were talking about. We use Happy Numbers and things like that. And then I primarily use this for my math textbook, which I'll get into. So here is our interactive math textbook. It displays exactly what the kids are seeing in their textbook. As you can see, I have some things written up from our lesson today. We were working on comparing and ordering decimals. And one thing that's really great, I wish I could highlight this, but unfortunately, I don't have the features to use the interactive piece right now since I'm connected via HDMI cable. I can use this technology. It has like a built-in work textbook, which I have right now. But I wish I could show you how difficult it is to erase this screen with the eraser that they give me through this system. It's really, really difficult. So one thing that I really like with this board is if you could look on the side, there's these light blue things. The top one is what I use probably the most. What it does is it like kind of saves a screenshot of the screen I'm on, but then puts a blank screen in front of it. So I could take my pen and I could write all over this and not, because if I were just to use the textbook, it only allows me to write within where you see the page. If I pull up that screen, then I can write on that blank white space. I can write up there and there, in like the web page down there and everything down below, which is really helpful because sometimes we have really good math discussion and I don't have room to write all over their books. And there's some things that I don't want writing in their books because I just don't want them to get confused. So I pull that screen up, we go through it, and the really cool thing is after I'm done with that, I take it off, it saves a screenshot, so if there's something really good on there that I want my students to have later, it saves it into a database and I can print it off for them later. So that's one thing that I really, really enjoy. Right down below that, there's a pen icon. That pulls up like a blank gray screen. So it'll take off this over here and pull up a blank gray screen. And what I like to use that for is if we get on those great conversations again, or I think, oh, I gotta reteach something or put something up, it's like a whiteboard feature. Whereas if you were to go into my classroom, you'd see my 2 whiteboards up front are full of posters and things like that. I don't have room to be writing on my whiteboard. And it gets all over my hands, the black, it's just a mess. And the kids love writing on the board way rather than a whiteboard and a marker. That's old school. No one likes to do that stuff anymore. So I pull that up there, we can write on it, and then I just go down to the PC thing and it brings this back up. So it's really user-friendly, it's really hassle-free, and it's just super simple for the kids to use. The last feature that I just want to talk about is if I were to pull up a PDF document like this, I can just go up to the top right over there where it says draw, and I can pull up a pen and I can easily write on there. If I want to save my work, I can save it in the end. If not, I just get rid of it and it goes blank and saves back to my OneDrive. I really like this feature, saving things as a PDF more than a smartboard or a smart doc. It's a lot easier to use. I have an example right here of a smart doc. So for example, today we were working on commas in a series in my room. And so I love to have kids come up to the board and be interactive. And sometimes they come up and you'll see if I were to go like this, it just pulls it down and it kind of messes things up. With my PDF file, I don't have to go through that trouble. It's really hard to convert a document or anything that I save into a smart doc file. I found that really hard at Parkside last year. It's great, but it's laggy, it's kind of outdated. I was always being asked to update things, whereas on my new line, I'm not ever doing that with a PDF file. Some things that I really, really like with this new line board versus my smart board is I'm a tall guy, I'm an active guy. I walk in and out of my screen all the time. There's no projector, which I absolutely love. I don't get, Mr. App, you're in the way of the board. I don't have to move out of the way, have that shadow casted on my back. It's all there right on the screen. A couple other things, like Todd talked about, is there's no cables, which is amazing. Last year, I don't know if it was just my board, if I drew the short straw with being the new guy in the room, but my dang smart board would be uncalibrated every single time I tried to use that. And so I'd have to unplug the plug, or unplug all the cables, then plug it back in, then recalibrate. And if I wanted to pull something else up, unplug, plug back in, recalibrate, and it just wasted tons of time teaching. It gets the students off task, it gets me a little frustrated, and it's just saving so much time not having all these cables. And just, I have it, I know where I'm at, and I'm ready to go at all times. Like Todd talked about, the sound system is very reliable. I have the volume up maybe to notch 8 in my classroom, and it sounds like you're in surround sound movie theater. It's awesome. I never have the kids saying, Mr. Apple, I can't hear. It's crystal clear quality. It's amazing. Probably the most important thing, with COVID and everything, we're constantly out of the building, substitutes and whatnot. It's nice that I don't have to leave my computer in the school. Like Todd said, we have built-in computers here where they just get my login information, they log in, and everything that I have saved to my OneDrive is all there on my computer, or up on this new line screen. So I don't have to worry about if I were to be at home and wake up not feeling good, I don't have to worry about getting my computer to school, making sure that they have that technology. They just have to log in, and they've got access to everything that I have saved on my OneDrive. And I think that's probably the most important thing and the best thing that has happened this year, not worrying about that little piece. They can just log in, and they're good to go. Do you guys have any questions for me about things that I utilize throughout the day? Any things you want me to touch more on a little bit? I'd be happy to share any more information that I can.
Appreciate your excitement.
Oh, I love it. It's great. It really is.
Well, we should probably upgrade boards at Parkside.
Oh, absolutely. If I could make a suggestion, I would say get as many of these TVs into as many buildings as possible.
So did you ask for the money already, Todd?
I think in a slow process, we could upgrade it, right?
They're substantially cheap. I mean, I shouldn't say it that way, but these are in total less expensive than smart boards, right? So as technology, I mean, we have systems in our office and people are shocked, and I always say to people, they're not grossly expensive as they look. You know what I mean? In terms of economics for technology.
The ones that we put in at Southview were less than what we were putting.
Yeah.
So would we have to do a total conversion all at once at Parkside? Or you could slowly work them in?
We've actually talked about, Todd and I have talked about budgeting in. We used to budget in different projectors, smartboard projectors every year. So we'll budget in several interactive TVs district-wide. And Todd's got a list of the age of all the smart boards. So
good. Sounds like you're on top of it.
You're doing a lot of mentoring with colleagues, Bennett?
Oh yeah, we collaborate a lot, go through all this thing. They like to think I'm the young guy on the team, so I know a lot about technology. But
You're the guru.
we're
You're the
figuring it
guru.
out day by day. I just like to think that I know that.
So you have to work with Pollock over there or what? Or
He's the third grade. Next year, it sounds like I'll be moving down to third grade, so I might get to interact with
you
him
have
next.
to mentor him then probably.
Sounds good. I'll be sure to do that.
Great job, Bennett.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bennett.
We're lucky to have you.
Thank you.
Moving on to our consent agenda, motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, please vote. By the way,
Todd.
thanks for the great job you guys do.
Thank you, Todd.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you,
Thank you,
guys.
Karen.
It is approved. Approval of the bills, motion to discuss. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Open for discussion.
Nothing really to discuss. It was relatively a low month for bills.
Okay. Any questions? Hearing none, please vote. It's approved. Anything on financials?
Just wanted to point out the general fund balances show the accurate numbers. On the revenue to expenditures, we have an entry to do for our levy. You'll notice the general fund revenue looks like it's down about 2 million, and it'll actually be right in line with the previous years once we get that entry.
Board members, anybody have anything they'd like to bring up? We'll then move on to our administrator's report. Mr. Superintendent.
And Mr. Chair, we have Ray Queener with us. He's got the discussion item, but I think he's been with us a while. Do we want to move ahead and do that item and come
Sure,
back to the
sure.
admin report so he can share? Ray's been working with us, as you guys know, on our strategic planning updates. He was here a couple days last week, and we've been making some progress. And he just wanted to share an update with you as to where we're at. Oh, we can't hear Ray.
Hold on a minute,
Can you
Ray.
hear me? Okay.
Push a button. Say something again.
Can you hear me now?
Hear me now? Yep, that's better.
Turn up a little.
Go ahead, Ray.
All right. Well,
Well,
this is, I'm gonna get, I'm getting a little feedback here, so I'm gonna talk over my voice. Thanks for the opportunity to be with you this evening. As Jeremy mentioned, wanted to give the board a quick update on our process and kind of where we're at. We've been making really good progress through our planning process and had a great couple of sessions last week at the district. If we can go to the next slide. We're going to touch on where things are at from all the components so far that we've completed, highlight a couple of key pieces. I know that you've seen this in the agenda already as well. If we drop down to the next slide, is the graphic that you've seen way back when we kicked things off. This is our classroom to boardroom process. And as you look at that J graphic, we are about halfway up. We've actually started an initial draft of our operational plan. So we've done the Storywall, that was the history. We've done the environmental scan, which is present day, strengths and needs of departments and buildings. We've done a draft desired daily experience, also got feedback on that experience. And then last week we worked on our vision card and our operational plan. So next slide. If you remember way back, I think that was in January where I was out and we did the educational leadership system with the board, talking about excellence in governance, management, and consultation. And we did that as an overview to set the stage for the components that are a part of our process, so that we understand everyone's roles and responsibilities. Then we give the board and the team an opportunity to weigh in on where they see strengths and challenges are for the district, as well as some desired outcomes of our process. So that kicked our planning process off. We then moved to Storywall, which is the next slide. The Storywall is done in a couple of phases. The first one is to divide the group up into small groups based on periods of time. Most of the time it's around a decade, and we captured what were the key events that occurred during those time periods. And then in part two, we asked the teams to take a look at those key events and do some analysis around them. And if we go to the next slide, each one of the time periods, there's a picture on the screen. This is from 1972 to 1998. So we had almost 50 years of history that we generated in our 3 hours together. But you can see that there were key events that were mapped out. And then when you look over to the observations and characteristics, that's really the part that we take forward with our planning team. So as we look and design for the future, we want to be aware of what characteristics were of successes occurred in the past, and then also if there were challenges, what were characteristics, because we want to replicate success and do all we can to avoid challenges. So we take that away from each one of the time periods, and the team used that information last week as we began to generate the district operational plan. After the Storywall, we moved to the environmental scan. That was also done in two phases, looking at what's happening in the district through four lenses. What are things that are well established? Those are things that have a lot of energy. You would see them throughout the district. They're very prevalent. We identified things that were ebbing. Things that are ebbing were once well established but has lost energy, and so they're not gone, but they're still there, but they're just not as much energy as they once were. The things that are on the edge are twofold. One could be cutting edge to education, what's new to education, or what might just be new to Marshall. What might be in other districts, but it's just not in Marshall. And then finally, in the emerging category, those are things that the district is implementing now. And so the environmental scan is designed to take a look at where are things present day, and then identify key trends and influences. So if we go to the next slide, you can see under the edge and emerging column, we've got those key trends and influences that are pushing around edging and emerging. And then under the established and ebbing, also those key influences and trends that are driving what's happening in those areas as well. We spent time over January and February with focus groups and mapped out a draft desired daily experience. Again, this is from primary stakeholders, students, families, and staff. And the planning team generated a draft desired daily experience for each one of those categories. And as you can see on the screen, we had about 45 middle, high school, and area technical and education center students that gave us input. And on the next screen, you can see we had about 20 parents from all grade levels, as well as about 30 staff. So we had a good cross-section of representation. We then compiled that draft desired daily experience, and we sent it out to all primary stakeholders, students, families, and staff. And on the next screen, you can see the results of those surveys. We had just under 1,300 student responses, 128 family, and 208 staff responses. The good news from a high level is that the draft that the the planning team did really resonated with the stakeholders. And so last week, our tweaks and refinements were minimal because the draft really was well done, and because we had a good representation in our focus groups, spoke to the group, to the stakeholders. We do have one more component that we are working on. The English EL group that we are, I think that's this weekend, and we're getting their stakeholder feedback. So we'll be bringing that back to the planning team for one final step. If we go to the next slide, the next 3 slides actually have those desired daily experiences. So you will notice that the language is written in either I or my statements. So these are still draft, but this is where the team is at right now. And you can see that we have students. Next slide, we have families, and then staff. And so we'll continue to refine these, but wanted to get them to share them back out with the board and public of what we are working on. These are the drivers of our vision card, which is how we're going to measure our plan, as well as our operational plan development. So the operational plan will be how will we deliver on these desired daily experiences. Last week, the next slide is the theory of action and vision card operational planning. We, over the 2 sessions, we did a draft of our classroom theory of action. That is a tool that we use to measure our beliefs, our actions, and behaviors for how we deliver on the plan. Vision card is how we measure it. And the operational plan is the work that we're going to do. So all 3 of those are still in early draft form, and we will be sharing more information when they are completed. And then in the next steps, next slide, we have a refining session on March 31st with the vision card and operational plan. Coming up on April 12th, the board will participate in this process. This is the boardroom part of the classroom to the boardroom, where we ask you to take a look at mission, vision, core values to ensure they are aligned with all of the work and the desired daily experiences. Slated for board action on May 2nd. We're back with you for your 3-year plan on May 16th. And then we have a structures, practices, and workflow with the board on June 6th, and then the school department improvement planning on June 9th. So one other comment I just wanted to make is that doing this work on, hopefully, fingers crossed, the heels of a pandemic or even during the pandemic is challenging, and your team has done a tremendous job of coming, being creative, doing hard work, and towards the end of a very long couple of years. So it's been a great joy to be with them, tremendously talented people, and I think we're going to have a wonderful strategic plan that comes out of this process for you to use and continue to use for years coming forward. So with that, I will pause and see if there are any questions from the board.
Ray, were you happy with that number of family responses? Ray, were you happy with that number of family responses?
I think so. I mean, it would have been nice to maybe have a few more, but the variety that we got back from the responses, I thought was a strong indicator that we had great draft statements. There will be one more opportunity for the all stakeholders, so that would be students, families, staff, as well as community, to weigh in on the final draft of the plan before you approve it. So we'll have one more chance to get feedback. But based on the results of the survey, I think we did a really good job on the draft. Statistically significant, probably not, but I didn't see anything where we were wildly off of what parents are desiring.
Thank you.
the process has gone really well too from our perspective. I think, Ray's put a lot of time into that, and it's really a lot of really good discussion about where we're at and where we want to go with our districts. So I appreciate that work.
Sounds like we're good.
All right, thank you, Ray.
Thanks,
Thank you all. Have a great evening.
Reports.
Yes, please.
All right, I will go to my report then. Just wanted to share with the board and the community, our interim activities director, Rick Purrington. He recently announced that after careful consideration, he is choosing to return to the classroom this fall. He took the reins of our activities department on October 1st, and he really hit the ground running this year. Appreciate the work he's done in that role, just working through a lot of things with us. And we have posted and are currently collecting applications for that permanent full-time position. So let's wish Rick all the best as he's going forward with returning to his classroom. I also wanted to draw a little attention to our literacy committee. It's been a team that's meeting this year, really doing some important work evaluating our literacy instruction for the district. Beth is meeting regularly with that team of K through 8 admin members and instructional coaches. They're discussing instructional and intervention practices with reading. They review best practices, research around that, and how we can use those resources to have the most impact on student learning. So that team is doing a lot of work looking at where we're at and where we go going forward. So something we really hadn't talked about, I wanted to make you aware of. Early childhood, Tiffany talks about the number of students and families coming through for the open house. They had a really, really good turnout for that on March 14th. And she also shares that they had their father-daughter dance last Friday. That was she wrote it in advance. It said they had 160 registered for the dance, and then they posted some photos and stuff on Facebook. So it was a fun event for early childhood families. It's fun seeing all these pre-COVID things coming back that haven't existed for a while. Parkside, Darcy shared that February was I Love to Read Month, and she argued it was one of the most exciting months at Parkside. They ended I Love to Read Month with some dress-up days that were always fun for the kids, and they had a special visit from the Cat in the Hat, along with Thing 1 and Thing 2. So they had some fun activities around reading, promoting that at Parkside last month. She also shared that they hosted Kindergarten Roundup in person this year, welcoming the class of 2035. Let that number sink in for a second. During open house, families got a tour. They visited each classroom. They met kindergarten teachers and other staff. They had about 120 families attend, which is pretty consistent with what we've seen pre-COVID in attendance at that event in the past. In the coming weeks, she shares that they will be following up with families who had not registered that they were maybe looking for that event. So that was a well-attended event. Southview, Pete also shares they had some special visitors, the Cat in the Hat and Thing 1 and Thing 2, as they celebrated Dr. Seuss's birthday. And he shared some pictures in his report that were fun. Mrs. Penske's class celebrated the day by making green eggs and ham. So it didn't look real visually appealing, but they had fun doing that. So Pete also shares that their PBIS team at Southview recently completed the 2-year training that's required to become a state-certified PBIS school, which was a big feat for them to complete that with the sub-shortages and such. They were able to make that work out. Middle school, one of the things that Paula shared this month is about the kindness closet that I want to share with you guys. It's something the special ed team is starting here at this school. They debuted on February 28th during conferences. It was a big hit. They had over 40 people come in. I'm going to say shop, but everything is free. So it's about the learning experience for the kids. Excuse me, it's students in special ed classes. They work sometimes organizing their store, and they're selling supplies such as clothing and personal hygiene items and stuff that students in need can come in and shop for. So it's a good service for the students that are in need of that, and really a good project for some of these students learning the skills of running that little store. So that has been a very successful project for that department. High school, Brian shares that student registration is now complete for the 22-23 school year. The next phase with that is building the master schedule. So they're holding department meetings with staff, looking at how many sections of each different course they'll be offering, and starting to build the master schedule for the high school for next year. He also shares that senior students submitted their scholarship applications. The scholarship committee will be meeting soon, determining the recipients for the Pride in the Tiger scholarship for this year. The award ceremony is scheduled for May 18th at 7 p.m. and it's going to be back at the high school this year. That was something we did last year because of COVID, and it worked really well in that setting. So the plan is to keep that at the high school in the gym going forward. That was a very nice event last year, and it will look the same way this year. Maytech, Amanda shares, they had a representative from Minnesota West come to visit with Maytech students. That visit took place during On to College BD time, but they invited all students to come in to that, and they learned more about two-year post-secondary options. They had a conversation with the representative about opportunities available through Midwest, and the students could just ask some one-on-one questions. A number of students are going on a college visit to those sites in the near future as well, so that was a good event for those students at Maytech. Also shared that the welding class recently did a site visit to Bendrite as part of the work with local employers. Bendrite and Carlson Stewart were in attendance and visited with welding students, talked about opportunities available at their businesses and what they're looking for in employees. So it was a good question and answer session and some visits with our students. And we look forward to continuing to do more of that type of connections with local business owners and our students at the at Maytech currently, but really that's focused around the work with the Career and Technical Institute. Activities department, Rick shared the winter activities update. Most of the winter activities have completed seasons. Wrestling and gymnastics sent individuals to the state tournament, and boys and girls hockey teams and basketball teams had very successful seasons as well. Speech, Knowledge Bowl, FFA, and robotics are continuing to compete as we move into April. The high school hosted the Big South Speech Tournament on March 17th. So a lot of things taking place there. I know spring things are now starting. He also shared live streaming of sporting events. This has been a very popular, a big discussion, a very popular thing that we've had, and it's kind of become an expectation. So our district contract with Huddle, that's the video service that we've got in the main gym. We have access to another Huddle camera as part of that for volleyball, basketball games with no extra cost with the current contract we have. So we will be installing a second Huddle camera in the North Gym. That'll be new for next year. Huddle cameras allow completely automated live streaming of games, and it streams to YouTube. So all basketball and volleyball varsity games were live streamed this way in 2021-22, and next year we'll have lower level games as well because we'll have access to that camera in the North Gym too. So nice additional service that we can add.
That's a nice feature.
Yeah, that camera does a nice job. It's not Studio One, but it's as an alternative, it's a nice way to have it. Special ed, Jackie shared this month that the high school is partnering with Private Industry Council and Minnesota West Community and Technical College. They're offering Breaking Traditions. It's college tours for special ed students. Through the Breaking Tradition event, students are able to visit post-secondary sites and gain hands-on experience with various technical programs. She also shared a thank you that she's got a copy in her report if you want to open that and read that yourself. It was from Hope Harbor in town, recognizing the impact of our staff on their students who have SPED services as well. So it's something we don't often get recognition for some of those pieces, and it was a nice thank you that we wanted to share. She wanted to share with you guys. In Mary Kay's report this month, she shares that shipments of MCA and MTOS assessments have begun to arrive. The testing has started with our MCA and MTOS. Each building is checked in inventory. This semester, 1 science students began testing on Monday, March 7th already, so we're into that season. She also shares that teachers at each building recently had opportunity to apply for American Indian resources, that's through the AI grant, such as literature books and visual aids through the American Indian grant that we receive each year. Additionally, each media center was able to purchase American Indian resources to have in the media center for students to check out. So some good things going on with that program. Teaching and learning, Beth shares that the science teams are working on reviewing resources. That's their year up for curriculum review. They also have some pretty big changes coming to their standards, so it's going to change science instruction and just alignment because of the new standards where different things fall. So she has on March 30th a meeting scheduled to meet with a K-12 science team looking at vertical alignment as some things shift from one grade level where it is in the standards to another. Be a big discussion for the science team, ensuring consistency between those grade levels and time to just discuss and learn from each other as they're selecting resources going forward. She also shared that about the March 28th PD Day, we have over 35 different presentations scheduled for that day for certified and non-certified. They both attend, everyone attends that morning. They'll choose which sessions they're interested in. We also have a keynote in the morning from Sydney Jensen. She's a high school teacher from Lincoln, Nebraska, who shares ways to build personal wellness around some social emotional learning for staff. That will be our keynote opening. A few of our staff have heard her and we're really excited to bring her in. Beth also shares that the next family engagement event, that's for EL families, that's scheduled for Saturday the 26th. It's the one that Ray just mentioned. We'll be gathering some input from our multilingual families on the desired daily experience. That'll be part of our strategic planning process. And that's some additional input we can add to that plan. Beth does a really nice job with those family engagement events, Beth and the EL staff. Dion.
Jeremy. Just wanted to keep the board updated on the food service RFP process. Jill and I have been working on, the draft was approved by MDE. So the RFP was sent out to 15 different food vendors. When we wrote this, 4 had responded. We're up to 6 different vendors that have responded that they're planning on attending the mandatory pre-bid meeting. That will be on Thursday. Thursday during the meeting, we'll just give an overview of Marshall Public Schools, then we'll tour each building with them. The bid opening is planned for April 20th. If all goes well, we get the contract drawn up and approved by MDE, it'll come to the board on May 17th for recommendation. Open enrollment, we're doing things just a little different. Open enrollment for benefits starts on April 11th. Kate and I have been working with NIS, the National Insurance Services, with a company called Building Blocks. Building Blocks will help us with our open enrollment by conducting a virtual meeting with each employee that works over 30 hours. By doing this, we'll ensure that the employee that qualifies for health, dental, and those benefits knows exactly what's offered, what they have, what the cost is. We'll be using the same benefit platform portal ease that we have in the past. Building Blocks, there's no charge for it as we're going through NIS for that. And in addition to that, we're actually saving $4,500 because we don't have to pay for our And then last, I just took a picture. If you haven't seen the gym doors in front of the middle school, we've updated them a little bit with some glass. Southwest Glass is probably about 60% complete with the doors around the middle.
Much more work in the pool area. I still call it the pool area, but the gymnastics room.
Drywall and the mudding's done. We've got a painters lined up for the middle of April. Southwest Glass will come in. They've given us bids to take the frame and glass out of the one that goes towards the gym, and then we'll replace.
That'll all be open then? Or?
Yep.
Good.
And then the frame and the glass. The frame will have to be replaced to, and the glass to the outside. We'll be updating that, and then hopefully by the end of the month, early April, the HVAC system. We're waiting on some equipment for that. We're getting there.
Had to give that a number, like number 18, room number 18 or something instead of pool room.
Oh.
Very good, thank you. Moving on to our strategic plan process update, we just did that. Okay, going on to our discussion items. First, review of policies 407 through 413. Any questions or comments on these?
Really, not a lot of changes there. I will share that in the harassment and violence policy, there was some suggested language from MSBA that will be more inclusive. Was the biggest change.
Moving on to our student and staff recruiting information.
So what I've attached there is a link to a video that we had considered sharing. I think after time tonight, I'll let you guys watch that on your own. But just to share some of the things, we've got a lot of positions open. We really worked to post those early this year. We've had some success there. We're getting candidates for different positions. One of the things we've done is Trisha worked with Studio One and updated a recruiting video that we had done 2016, 17, something like that, I think. So it's a nice video that they put together. So I encourage you to watch that. We'll be using that as part of our recruiting efforts as well.
Good. Moving on to our action items. Our first action item is approval of the contract with Southwest West Central Co-op. Motion to approve. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Open for discussion.
Share with the service co-op contract this year. There have been some changes with the special ed membership fees that they've added. They're just restructuring how they do that. They shared they were behind maybe in keeping up with some expenses they had and trying to rectify that with this new contract. So as part of that review, Dion and Jackie and I have spent a fair amount of time just looking at what we currently contract for services and what we hire on our own, and looking at what's the best way to move forward. So I feel the contract we currently have really does meet our needs for next year, and we'll continue to review annually what's most important to us with that.
Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, we'll vote. It is approved. Approval of the 2022-23 school calendar. Have a motion.
So moved.
Open for discussion.
The calendar, what we have is a calendar for 22-23 and then a draft also for 23-24. Not a lot of changes for next year. It looks pretty similar to this year's calendar. We did look at a few different options with how we lay the calendars out for next year, and calendar committee met, and this is what they what we agreed on in that conversation. One of the things that changed is the Wednesdays. Currently, if we have a Friday that's a noon dismissal, the Wednesday before is a regular 3 o'clock dismissal. We felt that's confusing for staff and families. Just to streamline that a bit for next year, every Wednesday that that isn't something else. Like a noon dismissal is going to be a 2:20 dismissal. So Wednesdays will all be consistent. We feel that'll be a little more straightforward for people. The other thing that we're looking at is the start dates. We've had multiple start dates the last couple of years. I know some of the feedback that I've received from the community was really that that's confusing and it's hard for our youngest learners to have a later start date than our older kids. So we're working on how to restructure those start dates, be more of an open house type format than assessment days like was originally planned. But that's what we're working on for next year.
Any comments? Okay, we'll call for a vote. It is approved. Thank you, board members. The meeting is adjourned.